London, 1888. The undisputed heart of a vast empire, the center of wealth, nobility, and science. But this city has another face. The East End, Whitechapel. That cursed place where not even the sun could penetrate, where fog and poverty settled deep into the streets. Life here was cheap. Women selling their bodies for a shilling, men selling their souls for a glass of gin. That autumn, a mysterious presence emerged from the shadows. Was it a man, or was it a monster? No one could be sure. He was given only one name. The name that wrote letters in blood to the newspapers. The name that played cat and mouse with the police. Jack the Ripper. 5 women. Unspeakable brutality. And a killer who was never caught. Over 130 years have passed. Technology has changed. Empires have fallen. The world has become a completely different place. But that question is still haunting. Who was he? Today, we open the case archive file. We return to the foggy streets of Whitechapel to investigate history's oldest and darkest mystery. Between August 31st and November 9th, 1888, London was under a reign of terror. On the streets of Whitechapel, within an area of just 2 kilometers, 5 women were brutally slaughtered. Police records refer to them as the Canonical Five. Ann Nichols, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine Eddowes, and Mary Jane Kelly. The only thing these women shared wasn't just poverty. What they shared was the pure evil they encountered. The killer didn't just murder his victims, he erased their existence. He removed organs with surgical precision, rendered faces unrecognizable, and left behind neither a trace nor a witness. At the time, the London police, Scotland Yard, was the most modern force in the world. But against this killer, they were helpless. Hundreds of suspects were questioned. Butchers, doctors, even members of the royal family were targeted by accusations. But Jack vanished into the fog. In this video, we will examine not just the murders, but those famous letters, the potential suspects, and how close modern science has come to solving this case. Get your umbrellas ready. It's raining in London, and tonight, the streets are incredibly dangerous. The terror began on Friday, August 31st. Ann Nichols, or Polly, as her loved ones called her. She was 43. Life had not been kind to her. She was an alcoholic, her husband had left her, and she had nowhere to stay that night. She was thrown out onto the street because she couldn't pay her lodging fee, a mere 4 pence. Her last words were, "Don't worry, I'll get my money soon. See what a nice bonnet I have." But she never earned that money. In the early hours of the morning, around 3:40 a.m., she was found in front of a stable. Her throat had been cut twice. But that wasn't what terrified the police the most. The killer had brutally ripped open Polly's abdomen. This was no ordinary street fight or robbery. This was a rage-filled ritual. The police initially thought it was an isolated incident. Gang work, they said. But just a week later, on September 8th, when the second victim, Annie Chapman, was found, Scotland Yard realized what they were facing. Annie's condition was far worse than Polly's. And the most horrifying detail, the killer had cut out and taken Annie's uterus. He had done this in the dark, quickly, and with the skill of a surgeon. Doctors were in shock. The person who did this knows anatomy, they said. And right then, a wave of panic spread across all of London. A doctor killer was roaming the streets. While the police desperately searched for a clue, on September 27th, an envelope arrived at the Central News Agency. It was written in red ink. The letter was headed, "Dear Boss." The writer mocked the police and took pride in the murders he committed. At the end of the letter, he signed that famous signature, "Yours truly, Jack the Ripper." This name shook the newspaper headlines. He was no longer a nameless monster, but a recognized icon. The public began to harbor a mixture of fear and fascination. But Jack wasn't done playing games with the police. A second letter arrived. The saucy Jackie postcard. It mentioned a double event. And indeed, that night on September 30th, Jack committed the double event that would go down in history. In the same night, within just an hour of each other, he killed two women, Elizabeth Stride and Catherine Eddowes. Elizabeth was lucky, if you could call it luck. Someone likely arrived while the killer was at work, and Jack was forced to flee. Elizabeth's throat was the only thing cut, but instead of calming his rage, Jack immediately sought another target, and he found Catherine Eddowes. He finished his incomplete work on her. Catherine's face was unrecognizable, and once again, an organ was missing. Her left kidney had been taken. Shortly after, a box titled "From Hell" was sent to a man named George Lusk. Inside the box was half a human kidney preserved in wine. The letter read, "I fried and ate the other half. It was very nice." This was proof that Jack was not just a killer, but a complete psychopath. By November, the London police were waiting on every corner, but Jack was patient. He waited. On November 9th, 1888, he staged the final scene. The victim was 25-year-old Mary Jane Kelly. Unlike the others, Mary Jane was killed not on the street, but inside her own small room. This was an opportunity for Jack. He wasn't on the street. He didn't need to rush. No one could see him. He remained in that room, alone with Mary Jane, for hours. When police entered the room, they couldn't find a word to describe the scene they encountered. The crime scene photos remain some of the hardest to look at even today. Mary Jane Kelly was completely obliterated. There wasn't a single spot in the room where blood hadn't splashed. It was as if the killer had poured all his hatred, all his darkness into that room that night. And then, silence. After the Mary Jane Kelly murder, the killing stopped abruptly. Jack vanished into the fog just as he had arrived. Did he die? Did he go to prison? Or did he flee to America? No one knew. So, who was he? Scotland Yard's list contained hundreds of names, but today, modern criminologists focus on three strong candidates. The first candidate, Aaron Kosminski, a Polish Jewish immigrant. He lived in Whitechapel, hated women, and was mentally unstable. The police at the time viewed him as a suspect but couldn't prove it. In 2014, it was claimed that DNA found on the shawl of victim Catherine Eddowes was linked to Kosminski. However, the shawl being heavily contaminated made this evidence controversial. The second candidate, Walter Sickert, a famous painter. Some theorists suggested Sickert secretly depicted murder scenes in his paintings. It was even said that the handwriting in the Ripper letters bore a resemblance to his. But this theory relies more on speculation than evidence. The third candidate, H. Holmes. Yes, America's first serial killer. According to some records, Holmes may have been in London during that period. Holmes possessed surgical knowledge and enjoyed dismembering bodies. Could Jack have been Holmes, fleeing to America while committing the murders? This is one of the strangest crossover theories in the true crime world. The truth is, we will likely never know with 100% certainty. Jack the Ripper ceased to be an individual. He became a symbol of the darkest corner of human nature. Walking through Whitechapel, looking at those old brick buildings, for a moment you can feel that fog. Maybe Jack wasn't a noble prince. Maybe he wasn't a genius doctor either. Maybe he was just an ordinary, indistinct man in the crowd who bumped into you on the subway. And isn't that the most terrifying part? That monsters move among us without hiding their faces. The file isn't closed. It's just sitting on dusty shelves, waiting for a new clue. This is the Case Archive. Watch your shadow. See you next time.